A year ago, I lied and used a fake name on a random online form. It seemed like a harmless joke, until letters addressed to that name started arriving at my home. It was some sketchy survey site. You know the kind, promises of free movie tickets or Amazon gift cards in exchange for your opinions. I'd been scrolling half awake in my apartment, a couple of beers deep, just killing time. They wanted a full name, email, mailing address. And for whatever reason, maybe boredom, maybe paranoia, I typed in Eric Maddox. No idea where that name came from. Just pulled it from thin air. Gave them my real address but a throwaway email. Didn't think about it again. I work in a gray little office downtown. Paperwork, emails, spreadsheets. I'm 32, live alone, keep to myself. I'm not exactly the adventurous type. My routine is a safety net, morning coffee at the same corner shop, lunch at the desk, Netflix or a book before bed. Predictable. Quiet. Then, about a month ago, a letter arrived. Thick envelope, glossy finish. Welcome, Eric Maddox, in bold font. Some bank I'd never heard of thanking me for choosing our Platinum Rewards program. I laughed. Tossed it aside. But then a week later, another one came. Different company. Eric Maddox, your exclusive offer awaits. I figured my address had been sold. Junk mail. Happens all the time. But then, the details started getting weird. One envelope contained a pre-approved loan letter. Fine. Except the income range listed was accurate, something I'd only entered on that original fake survey. Another letter had a delivery slip for a package I never ordered, addressed to Eric Maddox, sure, but listing a sender from a real estate agency 2 cities away. A company I'd never heard of, with my apartment listed as the mailing address and another property listed as a forwarding address in Eric's name. It made the hair on my neck stand up. This wasn't just junk mail anymore. I called the real estate office, just to ask. They said the contact listed was Eric Maddox. Claimed he'd been interested in one of their properties. I asked what phone number or email he gave. They refused to share that, privacy and all. But they thanked Mr. Maddox for his interest. Still, I chalked it up to a data mix-up. Maybe the form I filled out triggered some auto-marketing chain. Maybe some in turn confused names and addresses. Then came the court summons. A plain envelope, no return address. Inside, legal documents naming Eric Maddox as the defendant in a civil dispute. My address, the one I live in, listed as his primary residence. My actual mailbox. My home. I started feeling like I was breathing underwater. That night, I triple-checked my lease. My name, my real name, was still on everything. Utility bills, ID, employment records. I was me. So who the hell was Eric Maddox? I thought maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone I knew, a friend with a twisted sense of humor, or someone I pissed off. Until last week, when my office phone rang. Reception transferred it to me. Said the guy on the line asked for Eric. She laughed it off, figured it was a telemarketer. I picked up. Eric Maddox speaking, I said, sarcastic. There was a pause. Then a voice, smooth and confident. Finally, he said. I found you. I didn't recognize him. I asked who he was. You know who I am, he replied. I'm just glad you stopped hiding. I hung up. The next day, reception told me the same man called again, asked specifically for Eric Maddox. When she said there was no Eric, he just laughed and said, "Oh, he'll answer next time." He always does. That night, I checked the database of the courier company that had left a failed delivery slip addressed to Eric. A buddy of mine works in logistics and owed me a favor. He looked up the shipping logs. The address, my address, was now listed in their system under the name Eric Maddox. Not my real name. Not my records. But Eric's. I stared at the screen, rereading it. Someone had overwritten the entry. Recently. Deliberately. I thought about filing a police report. But what would I say? Hi, I made up a name for a dumb website a year ago, and now that name is becoming real. They'd laugh me out of the station. Now I'm watching my own life unravel, and the worst part is, I'm not sure it's even my life anymore. I started keeping a notebook. Not for some big investigation or manifesto, just a way to track the small things. Things I wouldn't have noticed before. Things I used to write off as forgetfulness or coincidence. Because at first, that's all it was. Small stuff. I'd come home from work and the living room window would be unlocked. I'd think, did I leave that open? I'd find the kitchen drawer slightly ajar, the one where I keep the good knives. Or the bathroom mirror fogged up, even though I hadn't showered since the morning. Just little shifts in routine. Easy to dismiss. Maybe I forgot. Maybe the wind rattled something loose. Maybe. Then the neighbor, an older guy, lives alone, keeps to himself, stopped me in the hallway one evening. "Hey, you were in town after all," he said, smiling. "Thought you'd gone for the weekend." I blinked. I was out of town. Left Friday morning, came back Sunday night. He looked puzzled. "Saw you Saturday. Coming out of your apartment around noon." Waved, "But I guess you didn't see me." I told him he must have seen someone else. Maybe a visitor. He chuckled. "Nah. Had your jacket on. Same gray one you wear in the mornings. Even had your walk. You sure it wasn't you?" I didn't answer. Because I was sure. I'd been 2 cities away at a training seminar. Hotel receipts, mileage, timestamps. I could prove where I'd been. But someone had been in my apartment. Someone who looked like me, or enough like me for my neighbor not to notice the difference. That's when the knot in my stomach stopped being theoretical. It became constant. A few days later, I requested a copy of my credit report. Not because of the letters, just a gut feeling. And there it was. A new line of credit opened 2 months ago. Name, Eric Maddox. Social tied to someone else. Address? Mine. It wasn't attached to my actual financial history, not yet, but it was out there. Real enough to be acknowledged by 2 banks. Real enough to buy things. Real enough to ruin me if it kept going. I called one of the banks, tried to explain. The woman on the phone was polite, but distant. "Mr. Maddox, I'm seeing that account is active and in good standing. Is there a specific issue?" I told her I wasn't Eric Maddox. That someone had used my address. She paused. "So you're not disputing the charges?" "There shouldn't be any charges." She hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir. We'll have to escalate this through formal channels. You'll need to submit a fraud report." I hung up, the phone slippery in my hand. The next morning, a man in a courier uniform buzzed the apartment. I opened the door and he smiled like he knew me. "Delivery for Eric Maddox." I stared at him. "That's not me." He looked at his scanner. "Says right here. This address. Eric Maddox." "Same as always." I stepped outside. "What do you mean, same as always?" He shrugged. "You've signed for a few of these before. Unless it was your roommate." "I live alone." He blinked. "Really? Huh. Well, someone's been signing." He held up the scanner, showed me the signature screen. Scribbled initials. Not mine. I took the package anyway. Brought it inside, shut the door, and just stared at it. No return address. Just a generic courier label. I peeled back the tape with my keys. Inside, a black notebook. Plain. Like the ones you buy in bulk. I opened it. Every page was blank. Except one. Near the middle, in clean, slanted handwriting. You created me. I stared at it so long I forgot to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I left the lights on. Kept the notebook on the table, untouched. I checked my locks 3 times, then dragged a chair in front of the door. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Soft. Deliberate. But when I looked through the peephole, it was empty. The next morning, I called out sick. Didn't feel like facing the office. Didn't want to risk that voice calling again, the one who'd said, "Finally, I found you." Instead, I walked to the public library. Used one of their computers. New browser, no saved history. Searched every database I could find for Eric Maddox. There were a few real people. A realtor in Kentucky. A student in Colorado. But nothing that matched the version I'd created, no tie to my address, no link to the survey form. Then I checked my email. The burner account I'd used for the survey site. One new message. No subject. No sender. Just a single line. Don't run from this. I'm just getting started. That was yesterday. Today, I found an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. Just left there. Inside was a photo. My apartment building. Taken from across the street, slightly angled, like someone had been watching from a parked car. On the back, handwritten in the same slanted script as the notebook. Thank you for giving me a name. I'm not letting it go. I stayed at a motel that night. Cheap place near the interstate, mold in the bathroom, flickering light above the sink. Didn't care. It wasn't home. That was the point. When I checked in, I used cash. Told the guy behind the counter my name was Dan. Dan what? Just Dan. He didn't argue. The room smelled like bleach and old smoke. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, still wearing the same clothes, staring at my phone like it might explode. No new messages. No new photos. No mysterious packages. But I didn't feel safe. I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped my insides and left the shell behind. Everything felt wrong now, the air, the light, my own skin. I opened my wallet. My ID stared back at me. My name. My face. My date of birth. But who else had seen that photo recently? Who had copied it? Who had used it? I thought about the signature on that delivery slip. The courier said someone had signed for packages using my address, someone who looked enough like me to pass. Someone who might even be me, in a sense. Or a version of me. I hadn't told anyone about the fake name. No friends, no coworkers. That dumb form a year ago, I filled it out on my couch while watching reruns. Never even finished the survey. Just entered the name, clicked through some questions, and closed the tab. But somehow that name had become real. The worst part? Part of me started to wonder if this was my fault. Not just the form. Something deeper. Like maybe I'd split myself in two that night, the man I wanted the world to see, and the one I actually was. And now that other part was walking around, smiling my smile, answering to a name I invented. I didn't sleep. The walls were thin, and someone kept slamming a door down the hall. Around 4 a.m., I checked out early and drove aimlessly for an hour before parking outside my office. I sat there until the sun came up. Then I went in. The receptionist, Marissa, looked up from her desk and did a double take. "You're back?" I frowned. "Yeah." "Why?" She hesitated. "I thought you'd left. Yesterday afternoon, I saw you leaving the building around 2. Didn't say goodbye or anything. Just walked right out. I hadn't been there at all. I'd called in sick." I forced a smile. Must have been someone else. She gave me a look. "Wearing your jacket?" I didn't answer. My hands were shaking as I rode the elevator. Something about the way she'd said it, not accusing, just confused. At my desk, everything was the same. Same cup of pens. Same half-used sticky notes. Same family photo from a reunion 3 years ago, everyone awkward, squinting in the sun. Except one thing was off. My computer was unlocked. I never leave it unlocked. I checked the browser history. It had been cleared. I opened my work inbox. 3 emails were marked as read that I hadn't touched. One had even been replied to. The message was short. "Sounds good. I'll handle it. Eric." My chest went cold. That signature, it hadn't come from me. It had come from someone logged into my profile. Someone who was in this building. I printed the email, folded it, and slipped it into my wallet. Then I spent the rest of the day pretending to work, eyes darting up every time someone passed by my desk. Every cough, every squeaky chair wheel, every keyboard click felt like a warning. Around 3 p.m., I made an excuse and left. When I got home, the hallway was empty. The door to my apartment was locked. I checked it 3 times. Then stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Quiet. Still. Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, right where I usually toss my keys, a folded piece of paper. Just sitting there. I picked it up with the edge of a towel. Unfolded it carefully. No words this time. Just a photocopy of my own ID, but with one difference. The name had been blacked out with marker. And in neat handwriting just above it, a new one. Eric Maddox. I dropped it. Checked the windows. Every lock. No signs of forced entry. No signs of anything. Except him. The day after the note, I went to the police. Didn't tell them everything, who would believe it? I said I suspected identity theft, someone using my address, maybe breaking into my apartment. Told them about the letters, the packages, the copied ID. The officer, a guy named Reynolds, tapped his pen a few times and gave me a look I'd seen before. A polite version of "you're wasting my time. Do you have any proof?" I showed him the photocopied ID. He held it up to the light like it might reveal something, then handed it back. "And you're sure this wasn't just mail mix-up?" "People don't just mix up a court summons," I said. He sighed. "Look, identity theft happens, sure. But this? You haven't lost any money. There's no break-in on record. No physical threats. It's weird, yeah. But weird doesn't mean illegal. I left with a pamphlet about protecting your digital identity and a number for the fraud department. That was it. That night, I barely slept again. Around 2 a.m., I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror. Just staring. I touched my face. My jaw. My eyes. Tried to remember the last time I really looked at myself, not a glance on the way out the door, but a real look. Like I was trying to memorize myself before something was gone. Because that's how it felt. Like something was fading. I don't know when it started, maybe around the time the letters came, maybe before. But little things were slipping. I'd find an old shirt in my closet I didn't remember buying. A bag of groceries on the counter I didn't remember picking up. And once, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. Not a little. Like I'd been digging. But that night in the mirror, that was when I saw it. A photo taped to the wall behind me. I turned, heart thudding. It hadn't been there an hour ago. I would have noticed. It was taped above the light switch, dead center like someone wanted to make sure I'd see it. It was me. Sitting at my desk at work. But not a picture I remembered being taken. The angle was wrong, from the corner of the room, maybe through the glass of the office next door. The timestamp in the corner, 2 days ago. A day I'd been out sick. A day someone else had answered my emails. On the back, in the same neat handwriting. "You look better when I wear you." I tore it up. Flushed the pieces. Then I packed a bag. Didn't think, didn't plan. Just moved on instinct. I drove for hours. North, toward the mountains. Past the city, past the suburbs, until the stars came out and the roads got narrow and quiet. Ended up at a little roadside motel. Paid in cash again. Name on the logbook? Jack. Just Jack. The room was bare, yellow walls, old quilt, faint smell of mildew. But it was mine, for now. Safe. I sat on the bed with the bag at my feet. Just breathing. Then I checked my phone. One new voicemail. I almost didn't listen. But I did. No voice. Just background noise. A low hum, like an air conditioner. Maybe a distant siren. And then a whisper, right at the end, barely audible. "Stop running. We're already here." I threw the phone in the bathroom sink. Let the faucet run until the screen cracked and died. I didn't sleep. Again. In the morning, I went to the front desk to check out. The woman behind the counter smiled like she knew me. "Checking out already, Mr. Maddox?" I froze. She tapped the monitor. "Room 12, right? That's what you checked in under last time." My mouth went dry. "I've never been here before." Her brow furrowed. "You sure?" She turned the monitor so I could see. There it was, room 12. 2 previous check-ins under the same name. Same face on the ID scan. Same address. My address. I leaned in. "When was that?" She scrolled. "The first time? Almost 6 months ago. Then again 2 months ago. You're kind of a regular." I backed away. Outside, the wind felt wrong. Too sharp. Too aware. I got in the car, turned the key, and just sat there. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. The room I'd stayed in, room 12, had the mirror facing the bed. Directly. Last night, I'd never looked. But I should have. Because maybe, just maybe, someone had been watching from the other side. I didn't go home. Didn't go back to the motel, either. I drove until my knuckles turned white on the wheel. Stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere and used the bathroom to wash my face, splash cold water behind my neck, try to feel human again. It didn't work. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not because I'd changed. But because the image felt off. Like I was watching a recording of myself on a loop. Same expression. Same blink. Same tired eyes. What if he was watching me through reflections, too? I left the gas station and drove to a coworker's place, Mark, from accounting. One of the few guys I trust, or at least used to. He always leaves a spare key under a planter on the porch, a habit I remembered from a drunken party last Christmas. I let myself in. Sat on his couch for hours, listening to the hum of the fridge and the occasional buzz of traffic. I didn't tell him I was there. Didn't call anyone. Didn't sleep. But sometime just before dawn, I connected to his Wi-Fi, opened my laptop, and logged into my work portal. I shouldn't have. I knew that. But I needed to see. I went straight to the access logs. My name was all over them. Login entries from days I wasn't at the office. IPs that didn't match mine. Documents edited, meetings scheduled, emails sent. Eric Maddox was busy. And he was good. I clicked into the most recent email chain. It was about a system access change. My supervisor, Carl, had approved a credentials update tied to a duplicate employee profile that IT flagged. Attached was a request form. Filled out in full. Name, Eric Maddox. Employee ID, my actual ID. Justification, correction of naming error. It had been signed by Carl. I felt sick. I called him. He didn't answer, of course. It was 5 in the morning. But I left a message anyway, voice shaking. Carl, it's me. The real me. I need you to check the system. Someone's using my login. Someone's pretending to be me. This isn't a mistake. It's deliberate. I hung up and immediately regretted it. I sounded insane. Paranoid. But I was paranoid. For good reason. I checked the company directory next. My name was there. But it was listed as an alias. The primary name now? Eric Maddox. Same employee photo. Same phone number. Same everything, except the name. I backed out of the portal. Closed the lid. Then I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a blinking light. Mark had a baby monitor. Not for a baby, but for his dog. One of those motion-detecting cameras you can access from your phone. I remembered him joking about it once. I like to check on Ralph when I'm working late. The light meant the camera was live. Streaming. Someone was watching. I turned it to face the wall and unplugged it. 30 seconds later, Mark called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Hey man, weird question. Are you at my place? My pet cam just went offline. If you're there, can you text me or something? Kind of freaking me out. He sounded half asleep. Confused. I didn't call back. I packed up my laptop, shoved the key back under the planter, and left. I didn't want to risk dragging him into this. As I got back in the car, a thought hit me. If someone's been accessing cameras, maybe they've been watching longer than I thought. I stopped at a diner just off the highway, the kind of place with sticky menus and coffee that tastes like gasoline. Sat in the corner booth. Ordered nothing. Used their Wi-Fi to log into my home security app. I'd installed a basic camera system last year, just a couple of indoor cams I barely used. One faced the front door. One in the living room. One in the hallway. All were offline. Had been for weeks. But the footage was still there. Auto backup. I scrolled through the archived videos, looking for anything unusual. And then I saw it. 3 weeks ago. 2:41 a.m. The front door opens. No forced entry. A man steps inside. He looks like me. Not exactly. Taller, maybe. Straighter posture. Wearing my jacket. My shoes. He walks through the apartment like he owns it. Puts a bag on the couch. Opens the fridge. Checks the thermostat. Then he walks straight to the hallway camera. And stares into it. Dead on. Not blinking. Not moving. Just staring. For a full minute. Then he says something. Quiet. I turn up the volume. The words are muffled. But I catch 3 of them. I live here. He turns. Walks to the bedroom. The video ends. I sat there in the booth for a long time after that. Long enough for the waitress to stop asking if I wanted anything. Long enough for the sun to rise. Long enough to realize this isn't identity theft anymore. This is a takeover. I stopped using my name. Stopped using my credit card, stopped answering calls, stopped checking my real email. I erased myself the best I could. He was already doing it anyway. Eric Maddox was everywhere now. At work. On bank documents. In delivery records. His name had replaced mine like whiteout over old paper, thin, imprecise, but effective enough. If you weren't looking closely, you'd never know someone else had once been there. And no one was looking closely. People started calling me Eric without realizing it. Baristas, delivery drivers, even my own HR rep when I tried to freeze my payroll account. I'm sorry, Mr. Maddox, but we need proof of your identity to process that request. I'm not Maddox, I told her. That's the problem. She didn't believe me. Didn't matter what I showed her, driver's license, social, birth certificate. It all felt like relics from a person who no longer existed. Eric's version of me had been cleaner. Newer. Digitally born. I was just, analog. Static. One day I returned to my apartment and found the locks changed. Key didn't work. Deadbolt scraped. Same door, same building, but it wouldn't open. I knocked. No answer. I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, my neighbor, the same one who swore he saw me during my weekend away, came out of his unit, holding a trash bag. He gave me a weird look. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I lied. Locked myself out." He hesitated. "Didn't you just go back in, like, 20 minutes ago?" I stared at him. "No. I've been out here." He looked back at my door. Then at me. "You're not messing with me?" I shook my head. He looked genuinely unnerved. "Weird," he muttered. "I swore I saw you." Even waved. He dumped his trash and walked off. I left, walked 6 blocks to a diner, and called a locksmith from a payphone. "Can't help you without proof you live there," he said. "I have mail." "Got ID with that address?" I paused. Because the answer was yes, but maybe not enough. What if the system already had me down as Eric? What if my own ID now flagged me as an impersonator? I hung up. Sat there for another hour, trying to think. Eventually, I used the last of my cash to rent a cheap basement Airbnb for a week. No ID required. Just a door code and some blurry pictures of a concrete room with a mattress and a tiny TV. The host's profile had no name. Just the word host and a smiling emoji. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I kept hearing sounds outside, nothing distinct, just presence. Footsteps on wet pavement. The crunch of gravel. Once, I thought I heard someone breathing near the vent. I turned on the TV. Local news. They were doing a profile on a missing man. Mid-30s. Lived alone. Worked in finance. His name? Not mine. Not Eric's. But the photo. It was me. Same face. Slightly older. Same eyes. The name was different, but the story was familiar, reported missing 2 months ago. Friends say he began acting paranoid, erratic. Believed he was being followed. Police found no evidence of foul play. His phone and ID were discovered abandoned near a rest stop. The image burned into my retinas. It was like watching myself disappear in real time. Like Eric had already done this before. Maybe more than once. I turned off the TV. Sat in the dark. My laptop was on the floor beside the mattress. I opened it, connected to the neighbor's unsecured Wi-Fi, and ran a simple search. Eric Maddox identity fraud. Nothing. No alerts. No arrests. No news articles. But when I searched just Eric Maddox, dozens of results came up. Different people. Different states. Different faces. Same name. And every few months, one of them would vanish. Dead link. Deactivated profile. Phone numbers disconnected. Like the name kept hopping hosts, wearing one body until it got worn out and moving on to the next. I clicked on a blog post written by a guy in Oregon, one of the oldest hits on the name. It was dated from nearly a decade ago. The post was short. Just one paragraph. I made up a fake name once for a forum registration. Eric Maddox. Seemed like a harmless alias. But someone's been using it. Not just using it, living it. If anything happens to me, just know, he's not real. But he's better at being me than I ever was. The blog hadn't been updated since. The email attached bounced back. I sat there until the battery died. And in that quiet, windowless room, I realized something I hadn't admitted before. Eric wasn't stealing my life. He was replacing it. Line by line. Password by password. Expression by expression. He didn't need to kill me. He just had to make the world forget me. One detail at a time. I woke up to the sound of my own voice. Muffled. Distorted. Coming from the TV. I hadn't turned it on. The screen was blue, no input, but somehow audio played underneath, just static and fragments of speech, like a corrupted voicemail playing on loop. You know who I am, not hiding, finally found. My voice. Words I remembered saying. The first phone call. Back when this started. I yanked the plug from the wall and sat in silence, heart pounding. The air in the basement felt heavier. Like someone had just left the room. Or hadn't yet. The room was the same, concrete walls, mattress, old dresser. But now it felt hollowed out. Like a stage after the actor's gone home. Like it had witnessed something and wasn't saying what. I left. Didn't take anything. Just walked out. It was drizzling. Not enough to soak, but enough to blur the edges of things. I kept walking. No direction. Eventually I ended up downtown. Glass buildings, blinking signs, traffic hum. Familiar and strange all at once. It felt like walking through a city that had been built for my memories, accurate in parts, distorted in others. I passed the coffee shop I used to go to every morning. Went inside on instinct. The barista looked up. "Hey," she said casually. "Long time." I froze. She recognized me. That meant something. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Been a rough couple weeks." "No kidding," she said, reaching for a to-go cup. "Same drink?" I nodded. She wrote a name on the cup before handing it off to the guy at the espresso machine. I leaned in. She'd written, Eric. My mouth went dry. I didn't correct her. Didn't speak at all. I took the cup when it was ready and left, the weight of it burning through my hand. Back on the sidewalk, I stared at the name. 5 letters. Simple. Clean. I could feel it settling onto me like dust. I threw the coffee in the trash and kept walking. That evening, I went back to my apartment. Or tried to. Same building. Same floor. Same unit number. Different name on the buzzer. Maddox, E. I buzzed. Waited. Nothing. Then I heard movement behind me, someone coming up the stairs. I turned instinctively. It was me. Or someone with my face. Same build. Same jacket. But sharper somehow. More assured. Like I was seeing the person I wished I had been. He walked right past me without flinching. Pulled out keys. Opened the door. Walked inside. I didn't stop him. Didn't say a word. I left the building and sat across the street, watching from the shadows. Lights turned on. He walked from room to room. Comfortable. At home. At one point he stood at the window and looked out. Not scanning. Staring. Directly at me. I didn't move. Didn't blink. He lifted a hand. Gave a small, lazy wave. And then closed the curtain. I stayed there until the sun came up. The next morning, I visited the county clerk's office. Asked to see records for the apartment address. The woman behind the desk pulled it up on her monitor. Name on the lease, she asked. I gave her mine. She frowned. Typed again. I'm only seeing Eric Maddox. Can I see the signature on the lease? She hesitated. That's usually not public. I'm the previous tenant, I said. Please. She sighed and turned the screen slightly. I leaned in. The signature was mine. My handwriting. My style. My pen stroke. But next to it? Printed clearly, Eric Maddox. I left without saying another word. I walked through the city like a ghost, moving through a world where I no longer belonged. No identity. No home. No history. Except for the one someone else had now. That night, I checked into a hotel under a fake name. One I'd never used before. Paid cash. No ID. When I reached the front desk, the woman smiled. Reservation for one? Yes. She typed quickly, then looked up. Hello, Mr. Maddox. Your room is ready. Welcome back. I didn't respond. Couldn't. She handed me the keycard with both hands, polite and efficient. Suite 602, just like last time. I took the card. Walked to the elevator. Pressed the button. Inside the elevator, I checked the card. Room 602. Same room number as my old office. Same floor. Same number I'd used in my old passwords. Eric Maddox wasn't following me. He was ahead of me. Building a life, step by step, on the ruins of mine. And now I wasn't sure if I was running from him. Or becoming him. The room was identical. Not similar, identical. Same pattern on the wallpaper, same squeaky closet door, same faint scratch on the bedside table where I'd once dropped a knife. But I'd never stayed in this hotel. Had I? The suite was pristine. Nothing looked touched. Not a smudge on the glass, not a wrinkle on the sheets. But everything felt lived in. Worn in a way only familiarity can create. Like someone had spent years here, not nights. The mini fridge was empty, except for one thing. A single Polaroid photo taped inside the door. I peeled it off carefully. It was a photo of me. Or him. Same face. Different posture. Sitting on the hotel bed, smiling, like he belonged here. Like he'd taken the photo himself, set the timer, and waited. Written on the back in that same slanted hand. You sleep better when you're not pretending. I dropped the photo. Every part of me screamed to leave. But I didn't. I lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling, the walls, the lamp in the corner. Trying to find the mistake. The crack. The thing that proved this was a copy, a fake. But everything was right. Too right. I closed my eyes. Slept. For the first time in weeks. When I woke up, it was dark. The room was cold. I reached for my phone out of habit, but it wasn't on the nightstand. It was on the desk. Unlocked. Screen on. A document open. A journal entry. But not mine. At least. I didn't remember writing it. It read. Day 134 of integration. The host is weakening. He resists less now. Accepts the inconsistencies. Accepts the overlap. Yesterday he saw me. Didn't react. Tomorrow he will answer when someone calls me Eric. Soon, he won't remember the difference. Soon, I won't need him at all. My hands were shaking. I closed the file. Opened the photos. Every picture was of me. Dozens. Different clothes. Different places. Some I remembered. Others I didn't. One was taken inside my childhood bedroom. I hadn't been back there in over a decade. One was of me, asleep in this very bed. It was time-stamped 2:47 a.m. I left the hotel in the morning. Didn't check out. Just walked. Through alleys. Past stores. Past my old haunts. The city had turned grayscale, familiar, but drained of color. Then I saw him again. Across the street. He was wearing my jacket. My shoes. Talking to someone I used to work with. Laughing. Slapping them on the back. He moved better than I did. Walked straighter. Spoke louder. Confident. Comfortable. The version of me I'd never quite pulled off. They walked together into my old office building. And I didn't follow. I checked into a new motel. One with no front desk. One where you pay through a machine. I sat on the bed and turned on the TV. It buzzed with static. A local news report played beneath the snow. Another missing person. Mid-30s. Male. Lived alone. They showed a picture. It wasn't me. Not exactly. But close. Too close. The name? Eric Maddox. I stared at the screen as it flickered. As the volume warbled and the image blurred. Then the reporter said, "Anyone with information about Eric Maddox's whereabouts is asked to contact." And the screen cut out. Black. I closed my eyes. For a long time. And when I opened them, the phone beside the bed was ringing. I answered. Silence. Then a familiar voice. Mine. Or his. Or both. You don't have to fight it anymore. I stopped asking if this was real. Stopped testing the edges of things. There's a moment, a point of no return, where disbelief becomes indulgence. Where trying to prove you're sane only makes you sound crazier. I passed that point somewhere around the second motel. Now I move quiet. Careful. Like a man on borrowed time. Because I am. It started when I visited the DMV. I'd held out as long as I could. But I needed something official, something to prove who I was. Maybe not to others anymore. Maybe just to myself. The building was fluorescent and lifeless, as always. Paper numbers, flickering TVs, a room full of people pretending not to look at each other. When they called my number, I approached the desk. Name? The woman asked, not looking up. I gave her mine. She typed. Frowned. Do you mean Maddox? No. I mean my name. She turned the monitor so I could see. There it was. My face. My birthdate. My address. But the name? Eric Maddox. I felt something break in my chest. A tiny crack, but sharp. Someone changed this, I said. She clicked through a few more screens. It's always been this way, sir. There are no recent edits. Check the archive. She raised an eyebrow. That's not something we can do on request. I stepped back. Didn't argue. Just walked out. That night, I visited the library. Found the archive computers, the ones with access to public records, news articles, obituaries. I typed in my name. Nothing. Not a single article. Not a school record. Not a birth announcement. Then I typed his. Hundreds of results. Photos. Interviews. Job promotions. A man with my face giving a TED talk 2 years ago about digital identity in a fractured age. A clip played automatically. He spoke confidently. Charismatic. Witty. I watched in silence. He looked like me. But more, refined. Like someone had sanded down the rough parts, added polish. In the corner of the video, I saw someone in the audience. Head down. Hoodie on. Blurred by poor focus. It was me. Watching him. At 3:12 a.m., I walked to a bridge near the river. No traffic. No lights. Just the sound of water and distant sirens. I took my wallet out. Held up my ID. Stared at the photo. Same face. But the name under it had changed. Eric Maddox. It hadn't just replaced me on paper. It had rewritten history. I dropped the wallet into the river. Watched it disappear. The next morning, I walked into a police station. Waited until someone called me up. Said I needed to report a theft. When they asked what was stolen, I said, my name. The officer didn't laugh. Didn't write anything down. He looked at me with the kind of sympathy usually reserved for lost dogs. I think you should speak to someone, he said. We can call someone for you. No, I said. He's already here. I don't need a doctor. I need a witness. A witness to what? I leaned in. To what happens when you stop being real. He stared at me for a long time. Then handed me a card. Therapist. Downtown office. Neatly printed. I took it. Left. Never looked back. Later that day, I tried logging into my bank account. Access denied. Tried my email. Password rejected. Tried my phone's facial recognition. Locked out. Everything was gone. He didn't steal my accounts. He had become them. That night, I broke into my own apartment. Pried open a basement window. Slid inside. The place looked lived in. Warm. Clean. There were shoes by the door. My shoes. But they weren't scuffed. They were new. I crept through the dark, every floorboard a gunshot. In the bedroom, I found clothes I never bought. Photos I never took. A life I never lived. He wasn't just living here. He was flourishing. There was one framed photo on the dresser. Him, with coworkers. My old team. Smiling like they'd known him forever. Smiling like I never existed. I stood in the dark for a long time. Then I heard the front door open. Footsteps. Voices. Laughter. His laughter. I didn't run. I just slipped out through the same window, into the cold, into the night. I walked until my legs gave out. Until I collapsed on a park bench and stared at the sky. There's something you learn in moments like that. You don't need to be killed to disappear. You just need someone to believe the story more than they believe you. And he had the better story. I don't remember falling asleep. I woke on the bench with frost on my coat and a stiff ache in my bones, the kind you get when your body forgets it has a place in the world. The city moved around me like I wasn't there. Joggers. Dog walkers. The early morning machinery of lives still tethered to something. Purpose. Identity. Routine. I sat still until the cold told me I wasn't dead yet. And then I stood. I went to the building where I used to work. Not through the front entrance, that'd be suicide. He was there now. In my chair. Logging into my account. Smiling with my teeth. But the back alley hadn't changed. Still smelled like cigarettes and damp cardboard. I waited until a delivery guy propped the side door open with a crate. Slipped in. Took the stairs. 6 floors up. Same buzzing lights. Same carpet that always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and anxiety. I stood outside the glass-walled conference room, watching him. Eric Maddox. Me. But not. He was laughing. Confident. Alive. Everyone around him mirrored that energy, eyes bright, heads nodding. They believed him. Not tolerated. Not questioned. Believed. That's all it took. A man becomes real when enough people say he is. I watched him for a long time. Then left. Not because I was afraid. But because I understood something in that moment. I'd already lost. I've been moving ever since. No name. No ID. No destination. Hostels. Shelters. Once, a storage unit with a busted lock and a mattress someone had left behind. I've stopped trying to prove I exist. Because the systems that verify you, banks, jobs, leases, friends, they've all updated. I'm a cached version of myself. A shadow that never cleared from the screen. But here's the thing. Even shadows leave a trace. The glitch. The flicker. The way a light hums wrong just before it goes out. He doesn't know I'm still here. Not really. He thinks I gave up. Maybe even offed myself. Maybe he tells people that, old friend, lost to depression or something equally tidy. But I'm watching him now. Just like he watched me. He moves too clean. Too perfect. Too practiced. Eventually, someone will notice. A girlfriend. A colleague. A stranger on the train. Someone will catch the hesitation when he forgets a memory that wasn't his to keep. Someone will ask a question he can't answer without checking a file first. And in that moment, maybe I'll be there. To whisper the truth. Until then, I leave notes. In motel drawers. Behind gas station mirrors. Carved into the back of picture frames at thrift stores. Same message every time. He's not who you think he is. Ask him about the name he gave up. It won't stop him. But maybe, just maybe, it'll make someone hesitate. And maybe that's enough. Because if you're reading this, and you've seen the name Eric Maddox more than once in your life, don't trust it. Don't repeat it. And whatever you do, don't give it your own.